Welcome to Build, Protect, Retire, a Woman in Wealth webinar by Wealth Enhancement Group. Let me introduce myself. I'm Peg Webb, Financial Advisor with Wealth Enhancement Group. I will lead the webinar today with my colleagues Britta Ferguson and Marti Awad. More details about us later. If you aren't familiar with Wealth Enhancement Group, we are a firm built by financial advisors over 25 years ago to provide comprehensive financial planning services through all phases of your life. We are a Barron's Top 5 registered investment advisory in the country with over 430 advisors and 110 offices. Decades later, our team approach maintains its appeal. Team is defined as all sharing culture. Who wins with this culture but our clients? Building your financial future can be a rewarding experience, but it often comes with complexities, uncertainties, and high stakes. Our clients have a dedicated lead advisor as your main point of contact, along with the benefit of our roundtable, a diverse set of team specialists in financial retirement planning, investments, tax planning, and estate planning. Our presentation today is broken down into 3 phases to mirror the arc of your financial life. First, my colleague Britta will be covering the build phase, discussing how to set the groundwork for lifetime financial stability. Next, Marti will come in and discuss how to protect what you've earned to safeguard your assets to withstand life's uncertainties. Finally, I will wrap it up by covering the retire section, talking about how to leverage that portfolio you've built into a comfortable and fulfilling retirement. Let me introduce my colleague, Britta Ferguson. As you can see on the slide, she has a certified financial planner, certified exit planning advisor, also 17 years of experience, which is very important with the history of knowing about behavioral science and finance when it comes to creating a financial plan. She embarked her career during the height of the 2008 market correction. With her passion for empowering others to achieve financial goals, she will address some of the key things to consider when you're building your nest egg. Britta has been working in the financial sector, as I said, for 17 years, and she lives and is based out of our Coronado, California office. Britta, I will now hand over to you, and let's get started on building wealth.
Thanks for that great introduction, Peg. As she mentioned, first up, the build phase. Before we begin, I'd like to start with a quote. They say it's better to be poor and happy than rich and miserable. But how about a compromise like moderately rich and just moody? Thank you, Princess Diana. Spoken like a true princess. But in all seriousness, the build phase starts with a vision. And the vision is based on how you want your life to look. An analogy I often use is you can't build a house if you don't have a blueprint. But you can't create a blueprint if you don't know what kind of house you want. That being said, you have to begin with the end in mind. Oftentimes, we find that defining your lifestyle vision isn't always a simple answer. And if you haven't spent a lot of time thinking about what type of lifestyle you want or what your dream retirement looks like, then it can even be daunting. The good news is that there isn't just one right answer, and you can always change your mind. Think about the lifestyle you dreamed of when you were 25, when you were 35, and even at 45. Imagine there are some similarities. I'd imagine that there are some similarities, but we find our clients' visions continue to evolve as they move through life. To get started, we recommend writing down your goals, answering these questions of above, and really taking some time to think about what's important to you. What gives you energy? Who and what matters most to you? As planners, we emphasize the importance of having a financial plan, aka the blueprint for your lifestyle goals. A financial plan is a roadmap that outlines the steps you should consider to realistically achieve that lifestyle vision. There are many facets to a financial plan, such as savings, tax, and investment strategies, just to name a few, that we'll be addressing throughout the presentation. There are different ways to get started. At Wealth Enhancement Group, we work with our clients to understand their visions, their goals, and what's truly important to them. Because what's important to you may not be important to someone else. So we take that information coupled with your financial situation and put a plan together on paper. This is a great starting point and a snapshot of where you stand today. In the next few slides, I'm going to go through some of the build phase considerations, changes you can make, and what the impact would be on your situation. So let's get into it. Savings is one of the foundations of wealth building. There are a few things to consider when you're deciding how much and where to save. First, ask yourself, what are you saving for? Is it a home, a vacation, an emergency fund, retirement? This will determine what type of account you should be saving in. Also, pay attention to your budget. Detail out your income versus your expenses and identify the essential versus discretionary spending. This can help you prioritize where your money is being spent and free up cash to allocate towards other goals. Today, we're going to break it down into 3 goals. You have the rainy day fund, you have the pre-retirement savings, and retirement savings. For the rainy day fund, we recommend having 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a savings account. Next, we'll skip to the retirement savings and then back to the pre-retirement savings. For retirement savings, the most common are the employer sponsored plans such as a 401k and a 403b, and also IRAs. Within the 401k, you have the option to save pre-tax, which you get the tax deduction today and then pay the taxes on all of the principal and all of the growth later in life once you've retired. The challenge here is that we don't know what your tax situation will be in the future. And then you have the Roth 401k, which you pay the taxes now, but all of your principal and earnings grow tax-free. I'll repeat that again. You have the Roth 401k, which you pay the taxes now, but all of your principal and earnings grow tax-free. Tax-free being the key words. Both are eligible for employer matching. So ask yourself, if your company offered you a bonus, would you turn it down? The employer matching is that bonus. We strongly encourage our clients to save enough in their 401ks to get the free money or the bonus. If you have the means and it makes sense with your goals, try to max out your 401k. For goals that occur prior to retirement and for the additional savings, you can set up a brokerage account. That will allow you to invest and continue to grow your nest egg. The reason it's important to save outside of the retirement account is for flexibility. If you weren't aware, there is a tax penalty on distributions from your retirement accounts prior to 59 and a half. So by saving in a brokerage account, you're able to save and invest, and it has more favorable tax rates too. In regards to savings, one of the easiest and most important tips I tell my clients is to automate their savings. Take advantage of saving in a 401k and programs that increase your contributions annually. Have your paycheck split into multiple accounts, such as checking, savings, and investments. Set up automatic balance transfers from your checking account into your saving account. Even if it's a small amount, these savings will grow over time and create financial security. That's all great, but I can hear you saying, why should we build savings early on in our lives? The answer, because you have time on your side and the power of compounded growth. I like to say that compounded growth is the 8th wonder of the world. So the basic gist of compounded growth is that your earnings have the opportunity to grow much faster over time when you reinvest your earnings. For example, if you check out this graph, and feel free to take a photo of this slide so you can digest it later. What this ultimately says is that if you were to save for 10 years, you had $1 and every month you put $2,000 in, so you're close to maxing out your 401k. Over the course of 10 years, you would have saved $240,000. But because you got a good rate of return, your portfolio with compounded growth is actually worth $331,000. And if it's in a Roth 401k, all $331,000 are tax-free to you. So let's take the same assumptions, but do it for 20 years. Once again, your personal contributions were $480,000. But with compounded growth at a 7% rate of return, that $480,000 is now worth $983,000. Also, if it's in a Roth 401k, it's all tax-free. So, time and compounded growth make getting to your goals a lot easier versus having to outright save every dollar. Just like you do your job, let your money work for you. This coincides with compounded interest and why it's better to earn interest than to pay it. And that means talking about debt. Some advisors, financial companies, and financial celebrities say that all debt is bad debt. Well, at Wealth Enhancement Group, we think this view is too simplistic. So, not all debt is created equally. In fact, some debt can actually be beneficial. Let's dive into the two types of debt. First, you have inefficient debt. This would be things like credit cards and high interest loans. Next are two ways that you can tackle this. So as planners, we always encourage our clients to pay down high interest debt. Know what you owe and the interest rate being charged. Pay down high interest debt first and pay more than the minimum amount, especially with credit cards. It's shocking to see the actual amount of interest one will pay and the time it takes to pay off the balance by just doing the minimum amount. Next, live within your means. By living within your means, this can help you avoid the inefficient debt. To do this, make mindful spending choices by differentiating between wants and needs. Looking for discounts, using coupons, and comparing prices can help you get the best bang for your buck. Every dollar saved counts and gets you one step closer to achieving your financial goals. On the flip side, you have efficient debt, such as student loans or a mortgage, which tends to yield a positive return or can be part of an appreciating asset, such as a house. There are oftentimes larger balances, so it's important to go through your financial plan and make sure you aren't taking on too much debt, regardless of the type. Once again, distinguish between wants and needs and live within your means. Now we're going to transition towards the protect phase. We've talked about building wealth through a couple different strategies and different ways that you can protect it by being smart with your debt. Here are three main takeaways from the build phase. 1, designing your financial future starts with a vision and a financial plan. What's yours? 2, being strategic with your savings can amplify your earnings over time through compounded growth. And then 3, mitigating bad debt is important, and learning how to use good debt is crucial for the next phase. Before we enter into phase 2, I'd like to introduce my esteemed colleague and truly a jack of all trades, Marti Awad, who's based in Denver, Colorado. Marti has been a private wealth advisor for almost a quarter century, and prior to that, she was a practicing tax attorney. She holds both the CFP and CFA designations and is often quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and Forbes. So Marti, outside of what we've covered and the traditional advice you hear, what advice do you give young people who are getting started with building their wealth?
Yeah, thanks, Britta. There really isn't any magic formula. You've just got to work as hard as you can, learn as much as you can, save as much as you can. Building wealth and a career requires discipline, and there aren't any shortcuts. But one thing that we do to help teach the younger generation is offer a Finance 101 seminar to our clients' children to help get them started off on the right foot. So we'll talk about savings. If you have your birthday money, put it in a piggy bank. If your child earns W-2 income, set up a Roth IRA and contribute some money there. And budgeting. If your child gets an allowance, earns babysitting money, or has a part-time job, talk to them about that. And then we also help kids learn about the stock market by encouraging their parents to set up a small stock picking account, because it's amazing how much kids will pay attention when there's real money on the line. But Britta, what would be your advice beyond what you've already talked about today?
Well, I would like to reemphasize the importance of having a financial plan and getting it in place as early as possible. But you have to implement the recommendations. A plan is only as good as the implementation. I would also like to say that it's important to have a basic understanding of taxes and the impact they have on your bottom line. And then finally, and of course, the power of a Roth and tax-free compounded growth.
That's terrific, Britta. And we're actually going to touch on some of those recommendations now. Now let's discuss how to protect what you've built. This is an important area to focus. You're working hard, you're disciplined about your savings, you're doing all the right things. How can you eliminate the risks of not reaching your goals? As financial advisors, we try to help our clients do just that. So, when we talk about protecting, what is it we want to protect? Well, we want to protect our investments. We're building wealth and we want to make sure we keep it. We want to protect our families from harm, both financial and otherwise. And we want to ensure that after we're gone, we leave a legacy behind to our family and often to our community and beyond. So we'll start with the investments. One aspect of protecting your wealth is protecting it from taxes. A colleague of mine likes to say, I don't mind paying taxes, but I don't want to leave Uncle Sam a tip. Our governing principle at Wealth Enhancement Group is let's pay every dollar we're obligated to pay, but not 1 penny more. Tax minimization is possible, but it doesn't happen automatically. And the tax code is not designed for our benefit. Minimizing your taxes requires an understanding of how your investments are taxed. So one strategy we employ is tax diversification among what we like to call the tax buckets. And Britta's already touched on this. We've got your taxable bucket, and that's your brokerage accounts, your bank checking and savings accounts. You're taxed on interest and dividend that you earn during the year, and any capital gains on assets that you sell. That middle bucket, your tax deferred account, those are your traditional 401ks and IRAs. You get a deduction today, so your contributions are not taxed on the way in. Your earnings grow tax deferred, but the distributions are taxed on the way out as ordinary income at your highest marginal rate. And the IRS doesn't let you escape taxation forever. You may have heard of the required minimum distribution, or RMD. For those who were born in 1959 or later, you must begin taking these RMDs at age 75. The third bucket, the tax advantage bucket, this is your Roth 401k, your Roth IRA. Now, there's no upfront deduction, so the contributions are taxed on the way in, but like the tax deferred account, they also grow tax-free, but now the earnings come out tax-free. And there are also no required minimum distributions, so this account can continue to grow throughout your life if you like. It's a great bucket to pull from in retirement, and it's also the best asset to leave to your heirs. And having assets in these three different buckets allows you to smooth out your taxes over time by accessing the funds in the most tax efficient manner, most likely with the help of a CPA or your financial advisor. However, most retirees lack tax diversification. A study by the Employee Benefit Research Institute found that people are typically over-concentrated in the tax-deferred accounts, with about 60% of the total allocated here, followed by the taxable accounts at around 35% and a measly 5% in that tax advantage bucket. And while everybody's situation is different, for most people, we'd like to see the accounts balanced relatively evenly between those three buckets, like you see to your right. But people typically are saving in the default way, which is to defer their salary to their employer-sponsored 401k plans to take advantage of that matching and to defer taxes. So There's nothing inherently wrong with this. It's good to take advantage of the employer incentives, and we all love tax deferral. But when you get this tax concentrated, it can have serious negative tax consequences in retirement when you start needing to draw from your savings and you're paying taxes on all of that tax deferred money. This next slide illustrates the risks, and it can be a tough one for people to see who haven't given much thought about how they'll be taxed in retirement. And it often reveals a misconception about how much money people think that they have saved for the future. When we think about our traditional tax-deferred investments, we tend to do so based on the account's absolute value. But in reality, the account value isn't what you'll get to spend in retirement. It's what winds up in your pocket after paying those taxes. The pie chart on your left is what your IRA account statement says, but the pie chart on the right illustrates what most people, on average, actually get to spend after federal and state taxes are deducted. And that's a pretty big difference. And depending on your tax bracket and how tax rates change over time, and most people think they're more likely to go up really than to go down, you could end up giving a really big piece of your IRA's value to taxes. So, for instance, if a client comes to us wanting to purchase a $35,000 car from the IRA, we don't just pull $35,000. We need to pull out $50,000 or more to cover those taxes. The point here is that your IRA comes with a tax lien. And it's pretty clear that having your investments solely in the traditional IRAs and 401ks, it's a flawed retirement strategy. But it's not at all uncommon for new clients to come to us near or in retirement with almost 100% of their savings in the traditional 401k and IRA. At that point, we do what we can to minimize the taxes going forward, but our options are really limited. All right, let's move to protection for our families and specifically insurance. If you have people who are relying on you financially, it's extremely important to have the right coverage. There are two basic types of life insurance: term life insurance, which covers a term of years, and permanent life insurance, which is intended to last throughout the insured's lifetime. A common type is whole life, which many people have heard about. While there is a place for permanent life insurance in some financial plans, very few people need life insurance to continue throughout their lifetime. Most people simply need to protect their families from the loss of earnings in case of their premature death. And term insurance is generally inexpensive and typically used to cover the insured's working years. Most people have some basic life insurance through their employer, but this is generally not enough. The right amount of life insurance depends on your particular situation, but it's often an amount that could pay off the mortgage, provide funds for your kids' education, and allow your family to maintain their current standard of living. Your financial advisor can undertake a life insurance gap analysis to determine if you have sufficient funds, and if not, how much and what type of life insurance that you should purchase. Let's focus on how to protect our legacy. While life insurance dovetails with this topic, the primary way to protect your legacy in a financial sense is through estate planning. As you may know, probate is the legal process for settling your estate. And even if you have a will, it can be slow and costly, and it's public. And some states are worse than others. In Colorado, where I live, it's not too bad. But where Britta lives in California, the process is quite onerous. But with no plan at all, probate can be a true nightmare for your loved ones. If you die without a will, the court will decide who inherits your assets, as dictated by your state's laws on intestate succession, which generally hinge on whether you are married and have children, with your spouse and your kids getting priority, followed by other close family members. The calculation, it's formulaic, it's simplistic, and treats individuals in the same category exactly the same way. But you can avoid this by having an estate plan, which will ensure that your assets go to the beneficiaries of your choice in the amounts that you want and in the manner that makes the most sense. So, for instance, in trust for a child who's a spendthrift rather than outright. Similarly, if you become incapacitated and have no plan in place, your family would have to petition the court to appoint a guardian or conservator to manage your affairs. Another very costly and time-consuming process that is often traumatic for everyone involved and can result in conflict between your loved ones over your finances and your medical care. On the flip side, an estate plan can help ensure that your values and goals are met. At a high level, an estate plan will involve drafting several key documents, including a will, which sets out your intentions of how to distribute your assets and appoints an executor to manage the process. May involve a trust, revocable and irrevocable, which is a specific financial instrument that can be used to transfer and manage assets and is administered by a trustee. A durable financial power of attorney that allows you to appoint somebody to handle the finances if you become incapacitated. And similarly, a healthcare power of attorney, which lets you appoint someone to handle your medical care if you become incapacitated. And this doesn't have to be the same person. The right person to handle your finances might not be the right person to handle medical decisions. So, for example, in my family, it's probably no surprise that I am the financial power of attorney for my parents, but my physician sister is the medical power of attorney. A final key document is an advance directive, also known as a living will, which provides physician direction on end-of-life decisions. Allows your family not to have to make these decisions during a very difficult time. And as part of this whole process, if you have minor children, it's very important that you set up guardianship designation. So who are those people that will raise your kids if something were to happen to you? And your plan is also going to have beneficiary designations for some of your assets so they can transfer directly without going through probate. Your documents are going to be unique to your situation, and some people's situations and documents are going to be more complex than others, but there are a few things generally to consider. First, estate law is very state tax specific. So if you move states, make sure to get your documents updated and make sure you understand the differences in the rates and rules between the two states. Second, while state laws may vary, in general, inherited monies, as long as they are not commingled in a joint account, remain separate property and not a marital asset that is subject to split in the case of a divorce. Okay, so once you have your estate plan in place and you've defined the purpose of your legacy, you can start looking at different tax-efficient techniques to support it. For instance, let's say, like most people, your purpose is providing for loved ones. The left-hand side of the chart gives you a few approaches to consider. You can take advantage of the annual exclusion amount, which allows you to make gifts of up to $18,000 this year to as many people as you like without reducing your lifetime gift tax exemption amount. Making gifts to 529 plans to cover post-secondary education and up to $10,000 per student for K through 12 education, which was relatively recently added. The funds grow tax-free, and they are also distributed tax-free as long as they're used for qualifying educational expenses. And in some states, you may even get a tax deduction. So here in Colorado, single filers can get a deduction for a little over $20,000 per beneficiary per year. Joint filers get a $31,000 deduction per beneficiary per year. Also, consider the step up in tax basis. It may make sense to hold on to highly appreciated assets because at your death, they'll take a step up in tax basis to fair market value, essentially wiping out any embedded gains. Okay, what if your purpose involves charitable giving? There are tax efficient ways for you to fulfill that intent as well. And a few basic ones are establishing a donor advised fund to fund charitable giving in the future, but take an immediate tax deduction. Along those lines, donate appreciated stock instead of cash. You don't pay capital gains on the tax donated, but you still get to take a fair market value tax deduction as long as that stock was held for at least a year. And if you're at least 71 and a half years old, and it's funny to talk in half years when you're over 10 years old, but that's the rules, you can make a QCD, which is a charitable donation of up to $100,000 per year directly to a charity, and it won't be included in your income. So it's not going to impact your Medicare premium, which is charged on a sliding scale based on income. We've covered a lot here. Our three main takeaways of protecting what you've earned are that, number one, diversification is key, and it goes beyond just stock and bond diversification. Number two, insurance is essential to protect your family. And number three, estate planning protects your legacy, helps your family during a difficult time, and ensures that your wishes are met. All of this planning helps us safeguard our wealth. Now I'm delighted to reintroduce my colleague in Naples, Florida, Peg Webb, to discuss the retire phase of your financial life. Peg is a real powerhouse. She's been a financial advisor for over 40 years. She has won numerous industry awards, and she is the host of Wealth Enhancement Group's weekly radio show and podcast, Your Money. Peg, I'd love to hear if you have any secrets or paths to success for how you got to where you are today.
Oh, thank you, Marti. I actually have a lot, but I want to go all the way back to when I was in college. I went for interior design in the early 80s. And it ended up, some of you listening today may know that it was a really hard time because interest rates were at 18%. So there wasn't a lot of spending on interior design. So I decided to go for a different role because I was good at math and take a job with the financial planning institution. And I did love math. And so they said, okay, we're going to hire you. Well, as I look back, I had the most gracious mentors within the companies that I've worked with. And here's how I did it. In my head, I just wanted to learn as much as I could in a very short period of time. So seek to learn. That's what I would call it. I need to seek to learn. What is this? What about that? Think about a 2-year-old. I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, and this is what she says. What about that? What is this? What is this? And you ask a lot of questions. So several coworkers were happy to help, especially because I was so eager and was so appreciative of their time. I actually said to them, I owe you 3% of my income for the rest of my life. That's how much I loved what they shared with me. So what I do now, and since then, I pay it forward in helping others. So Marti, what would you say to those clients who do have 60% plus of their assets in a tax deferred bucket?
Thanks, Peg. And I love hearing your wisdom, and you have such a great way of putting things into words. I always like to consider for clients a Roth conversion, which involves transferring funds directly from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. The downside to this strategy is that you have to pay taxes today on the amount converted. However, the upside is that the amount converted will continue to grow tax-free and will be withdrawn in the future tax-free. And whether this strategy makes sense or not depends on the current and projected tax bracket for each client. That said, this year and next may be a nice window for some to take advantage of this strategy before the tax brackets revert to the more compressed 2017 levels. So for instance, income that's taxed today at 24% will be taxed at either 28 or 33% in 2026.
Thanks, Marti, for that. Now, this is the last arc of the 3, and it's retire. Is it retire or retirements. I have helped hundreds of families to get ready for this retirement over the last 30 years. But recently I took my own advice. I transitioned my clients to my successors, one of those being my daughter, Nicole Webb, and she's been with our firm for 20 years. I retired from the day-to-day of advising clients. I remain with our company that I'm very proud of as a consultant. I continue to co-host our firm's radio show weekly, as Marti mentioned, and that show has been running for 25 plus years. I will have another retirement when the end of the consulting is done and the timing feels right for me. Ask me how it's going. Great! So what I'd like to do is make sure that you have someone that you partner with that can give you help and confidence to say great, just like I did, when someone asks you, how is your retirement going? So what is retirement income planning? Well, you're not going to believe this, but one way that I looked at it right off the bat in being in this industry and helping clients is I always said, have a plan, work the plan. Have a plan, work the plan. To the point where my license plate in Minnesota said, have a plan. HVAPLAN. And what that did is many people asked me, what is that license plate? So then I was able to say, well, you have to have the plan, work the plan. Well, retirement income planning starts with a strategic financial process. It's never too early. It's never too late to start retirement planning. I've always put retirement planning into two different categories, one being financial and one being non-financial. Well, financial is kind of like living for today, but saving for tomorrow. You could start early, middle, or late, but you're trying to accomplish two things in that financial stage. You're accumulating wealth so that you can distribute it to yourself for a long period of time. Non-financial, this is the fun part. Britta kind of touched on this. Lifestyle choices. What is your vision? Is it a second home in Florida? Is it trips with the grandkids? Is it taking care of your parents? It's your vision. I always told my clients when we'd have these introduction meetings, you tell me your vision, run your little movie in your head, tell me what it is, and I'm going to make that movie go from black and white to color and give you the utmost confidence that you can get there. And then search for stable income for life. This is kind of a fun one. You know, how much do you want to spend in retirement? It's very muddy for most people. They just don't know, what that looks like. But once again, now I've got the movie that I can start putting numbers to. What's interesting here, though, is on the left, it says, what do you think you're going to spend? And what do you actually spend on the right? Well, I say it this way, and this is what my clients have done, right? Because I'm 30 years into this. In the beginning, when you retire, I call it the go-go years. Then it kind of goes to the slow-go years. And then, sadly enough, there's the no-go years. Well, I'm all about trying to get those clients to, in the go-go years, to do what's on their bucket list. I personally, because I've made that decision to retire from the practice, but still be a consultant, I booked 3 trips on day one that I was retired. So I know exactly how my clients feel. But spending increases, when you have that time frame and you have your health. Who cares about your wealth if you don't have your health? Social Security. Optimize when you claim Social Security benefits. And what do we mean by that? There's choices. So this is one of the biggest decisions you'll make. And I see way too many people that don't take it as seriously as they should because it's permanent. Whatever decision you make, you don't get a redo. So you can't make this decision in isolation. because this decision actually ripples to all sorts of different parts of your financial plan. So one of the first things we do is we look at where would Social Security fit in your plan as far as income, and when should you take it. This slide is just showing you full retirement age and what age you will be when Social Security says, okay, you have met the FRA, or the full retirement age. The older you are, 1960 or later, which a lot of people now that are coming in to see Wealth Enhancement Group are either in the 1959 or the 1960, or they've made their choices. They were born earlier than that, but we can't change it. But now with 1960 or later, the IRS and Social Security Administration said, we're going to push you guys out a little bit. Remember, we're hearing headlines about Social Security being a little short of funds. So we want to walk through that with our clients. But this slide, I think, is more impactful. It's always harder when Social Security says, hey, you have a choice. But what they don't tell you in any of the literature is, does anyone know exactly how long I'm going to be on this earth? And you might say, why are you asking that? Well, here's our choices. We can take that Social Security as young as 62 years old. There's some provisions before your FRA at 66 in this slide that you would get reduced because you're still working and you can't make more money than a certain amount. So you have to watch out for that. Then they also let you say, oh, at 66 or full retirement age, I don't need those funds, so I'm going to let it go to 70. There is a simple math drill that's happening here. Between 62 and 70, they're using your mortality. So if you're 66 years old, they've got a statistic for men and women how long you're going to live. And a lot of times the break even is somewhere between 81 and 82 years old. So if you choose to take it at 62 or 66 or 70 or somewhere in between, and you live past 82, then you break even, basically. But people are afraid that they might die early, or people are afraid that they're not going to, live for as long as they want. So when are you going to leave this earth? The reason I bring that up is because a lot of our clients, I have to convince them to take Social Security because the number one thing that they want is to get money to their children and their grandchildren. Well, if you start Social Security at 62 and then you don't have to take that extra money out of your buckets of money that Britta talked about and Marti talked about. So there's a lot of complex decisions that you have to make. So I leave this slide with, please don't make this decision in isolation. Get help. So one of the things that reality hits you is, remember me saying, if you have your wealth, but you don't have your health, that's no fun. Well, if you have your health and you have your wealth, that's the magic formula. Well, I've lived through so many people's lives in the last decades. And so in the good times, we ride high with our clients. And in the bad times, we ride with them too. And so the reality is it costs more when you get older. And here's really the bad news. Women statistically live longer than men. But good news is women statistically live longer than men. So there's a happy part of that and there's a sad part of that, but it's the cost. So as a financial planner, this is a biggie. We have to plan for women specifically to save more, compound more, make the right choices so that they have the money to be able to pay for these services and not, be left with a low amount of money when you need it the most. So it's really a big balancing act. So we bring it all together. Let's go over the main ideas from each of the 3 sections: build, protect, and retire. Britta pointed out that there's some foundation steps early on that will give us a higher probability of success. Vision, save early, power of compounding. Those were the 3 things I took from Britta, what she was talking about in that build section. And then Marti pointed out we need to protect our foundation for you. First and foremost, for your families, your legacy. So you're trying to keep that in mind, and then also be a steward of your investments. Be a steward as far as having documents that you need for the next generation that are all in place. You don't want to leave a mess for them. I've provided some insight on huge decisions that you will make when you think about retirement. Women take great pride in taking care and supporting each other. My experience has been that women want a plan and they want to work the plan. And I would say of my clients, they get the gold star because sometimes it's difficult. If there's a couple, we want to make sure that the husband and the wife or the couple, are both heard. But I would say that women are super great at implementing the plan once you create it. So what I'd like to do is thank you so much for joining us today. If anything that you heard resonated with you, or if you have any questions and would like to speak to a financial advisor at Wealth Enhancement Group, please reach out through our website, wealthenhancement.com. All of us believe that the more that you take control of your finances, the better prepared you are for your future. The first step is educating yourself, so thank you. If you're listening today, you know, it's kind of like what I said, you seek to learn. And when you start to become confident is when you take those steps. No matter where you are in your financial journey, you can take steps now to create a better future for yourself. Thank you for joining us.